Welcome to the Thinking Ahead with the Fitness Business Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Stowell. Thinking Ahead's mission is to seek out expert guests who will get us all thinking ahead and challenging us to turn ideas into actions. We discuss concepts, ideas, and strategies that are yet to be trending because we want you, our listeners, setting the trends, not following them. Welcome to the show, Jeffrey.
Thanks, Jason.
Now that I've got that preamble, can you, in your own words, tell us a little bit about yourself, your experiences, and what the work you do through AMP Venture Partners is?
Yeah, I don't know if I can say it as well as that bio, though. So AMP Venture Partners is something I started about a little over a year ago. I was doing advising and consulting for many, many years for a lot of different kinds of fitness companies and health companies, as well as sports tech companies. So basically, in a nutshell, I formalized a company after a while called AMP Venture Partners. And AMP stands for Autonomy, Mastery, and Purpose. Which rings true to sort of like some of the things that I really like hold dear to my heart, the types of founders and types of people that I want to work with. When I help them, I really try to figure out, what drives them, and do they have that autonomy to, make key decisions each and every day, and do they have the mastery? And it's okay if they don't, but in essence, if they don't have the mastery of that particular sort of industry, then who else is on their team might. And also, in a nutshell, that's something that I can provide. So I'm obviously happy to do that for them. And then the purpose is like, what is the product that they're pitching and planning on making a huge impact in the industries that they're working on. And so, do they have like a clear vision of what that looks like?
I love that. And I think one of the things I was most impressed with is pre-pandemic, it was a very competitive space. Not to say it's not competitive now, but the industry came together with these presentations and the sharing of best practices, regardless of walls, really just to sustain our businesses. And so when you're speaking about really adding value to each other, I think that just speaks volumes about where we as an industry are heading. So it's great. Thank you. Keeping the conversation at 30,000 foot perspective, just to start, I would love to hear what your thoughts are in regards to the future of the fitness industry landscape and what it likely will look like as we continue to merge our physical and our digital offerings together.
Mm-hmm. I think we have to believe that everything is going to coexist with each other. Like there's not going to be one gym out there. It's not going to be like an Anytime Fitness that dominates everything and everything else is going to close. And there's going to be like a Forte Fitness that's going to take over in terms of the digital boutique streaming and so forth. I think there's going to be a lot of players that are going to coexist with each other and kind of develop the ability for the gym. And then I know you're interested in like the future of fitness, and like there's a bunch of white papers out there. And I think one of the things that I draw from that white paper article is that the gyms themselves need to position themselves as a wheel. They can't be a spoke in the wheel, but they literally have to be the wheel itself. And then all of the other things like the digital interventions and the digital fitness apps, the recovery tools like a Theragun or a Hyperice, and sports nutrition products and so forth. Those are all little bitty spokes in that wheel. And your journey as a fitness member, a fitness participant, an athlete, everybody's an athlete in my opinion, is to keep that wheel moving. And the gyms have a great opportunity to sort of grab on to all of those digital interventions and play nice. So for example, if I have a member that's coming in and maybe they signed up for personal training, well, it'd be great for that personal trainer to know exactly like how that person has been sleeping throughout the week, what's their emotional status throughout the week, what are some of the exercise sessions that they've done throughout the week. Maybe they've done 2 Peloton sessions, they've done mover once this week, and a couple other things. But all that data can be compiled and then sent over to the personal trainer that he or she's going to see, and that personal trainer then therefore on that particular day can make the best personalized session for that person. No longer is it going to be the day like where, okay, here's the program, here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to go from A to Z and follow it to the T. And no longer will that be the case, because I think the personal trainer is going to have accountability factor here. Okay, I have all this data, I need to interpret it, and now I need to adjust the training program to make sure Jeff is going to be well taken care of and progress without injury or without burnout. And continue to try to increase his optimal performance levels.
So what are your feelings around the prospects of that kind of implementation? And do you see like a timeline that's coming? Is that next week or is that next year or 10 years? Where do you believe that?
Let me ask you, like, do you have any wearables that you use?
Oh yeah, I got my smartwatch right here. I got my MyoZone belt on. I got my smartphone. I'm still a bionic man at this point. So Jeffrey, let me ask you, as fitness begins to expand in other areas like medical integration and our personal trainers start to work with our doctors, what kind of developments, what's happening out there right now that we should be aware of?
Yeah, great question too. So I think there's a couple of ways to answer that. I think one is like on the data side, and like, so as we kind of, have more wearables available, more apps available, and we do continue to do things, even on like connected fitness machines. All that data is that's yours to own, right? We don't want that to get lost. So there's some companies that are working on basically like an Amazon Web Service cloud for fitness data, and they're taking all that data and like, okay, all right, I have it. Now what? And so one company that I know that I'm kind of helping with a little bit is like, we want to be able to take that data and we want to be able to push it and give it to everybody that you're kind of connected to in terms of your individual ecosystem. And maybe that individual ecosystem is your gym and your personal trainer, or maybe your coach. Maybe it is your doctor, like your medical doctor or specialty doctor. And even on that note, like the fitness into healthcare is going to be like the next big thing. And that's how Apple is focusing on their sort of ecosystem with the fitness and the health. They want to change health by all means by pushing fitness into the health ecosystem that they have. So what's going to happen here, in my opinion, is that you're going to be able to say, okay, once a month, for example, all right, I'm going to be able to take a blood test. And the blood test is going to be able to tell me like my whole entire metabolic panel, some deficiencies that need to be kind of addressed. And then as that is known, then maybe it's connected to a company. That company knows what I need more of, and they're actually going to ship me sort of a monthly amount of vitamin B12, vitamin C, and whatever it might be. But it's going to be able to provide me with the minerals and the vitamins and the macros and the micros and everything that I need to get myself to be at an optimal level of nutrients. So my health is affected by what I do and what I don't do. And I need the data to be able to say, hey, all right, here's what you're doing, but here's what we need you to do differently. And I also need the data to tell my doctor, like, here's what I've done. And I need you to kind of tell me if there's something I should be doing differently. And so those kinds of communication have to go across a bridge. And I think like in the cloud, that's what these kind of companies can be able to do. They can deliver all the information to different healthcare settings and then back to you. And so the days of going to the doctor like month after month or maybe twice, 3 times a year will go by the wayside, because they can do telemedicine. They can look at your ECG from your watch or maybe a device that's maybe implanted in you, by the way. And they won't have to see you as often, because once they see an abnormality, then they can reach out to you and then they will be known immediately, right? It's no longer like, oh, I have to go to the doctor today. It may be you go see the doctor only when there's an abnormality to be concerned about. Otherwise, it's not to say it's like Big Brother, but they're already kind of knowing exactly what you're doing and how you're doing and whether or not you're, on the up.
Do you see with that whole, the doctor-client, doctor-patient relationship, do you see like in like a personal trainer or gym owner kind of being part of that spectrum, right? So I, of course, with my acknowledged and permission, say, okay, I've been working with my doctor to improve these things. And so we have this data that can be just pushed to the professionals who can take that data and say, let's turn this into actionables. Your levels are here, so we're going to implement this actionable to improve that. So do you see that then the marrying into a relationship, or you still think it's going to be kind of an isolated, I'm going to give the patient the data and then he's going to do with it what he will, either go to the gym or not? Are we still going to be outside that relationship?
It's going to take some time, but for sure, and you have to say there has to be a marriage. Like they have to marry each other, because what's currently happening isn't working. We still have, people who are like told what to do as far as medications are concerned, why it's important, life or death, and they don't take it, they forget, or whatever it might be. You see behaviors in terms of fitness at doctors' visits, and they'll say, okay, here's what's going on, and it's not looking too good. Your comorbidity or obese or whatever it might be, right? And then they're like, well, here's what you need to do. And I think it's unfair to give the doctors the power to try to persuade the patients to do what, because they don't know either. Like, they're doctors, and then no knock against them. Some are probably really good at giving fitness information, but for the most part, we can't rely on them to give the powerful statements of like what to do and why and how often. And so like the healthcare industry has an ability to adopt and align themselves with certain digital services in the digital health fitness landscapes, and to put those two together to make sure that the patients are taken care of. And then they can go on, and then they could be guided on a more expert type of product or coach. And then that information can be given back to the doctor, and he or she, the doctor, as long as they know like what the patient's doing, and then they can see some change, then things are okay. But I can guarantee that if you rely only on the doctors to give the information, like I would bet my house on this, that we're going to continue to see our obesity rates go up, hypertension, diabetes, etc. And so we can't necessarily rely on the doctors to give the information of what to do in terms of like healthy behaviors and like in fitness, because people just, honestly, I don't think they'll change. That's what they're doing currently, and they're just not changing. Even to the extent of like nutrition. Like you don't see doctors offering nutrition advice. They usually say, hey, you know what? You need to go see this nutritionist. They're registered dietitian. You can go see them at their private practice or office, and virtually nowadays. So I'm going to connect you. But rarely do we see that in the fitness side, which is almost an integral component to healthcare. It's like, okay, when would you ever hear a doctor say, okay, you know what? I need you to connect to this personal trainer?
That's a great point. You see the nutritionists all the time, right? But it's not there yet with, I need you to go see Jason at Joe's gym down the street. Right. That's interesting.
And I think, in my opinion, like it's because there's just not enough respect. Like it's like, it's just fitness. Like go outside and exercise a little bit, which is probably great to do, right? Might take you from here to here, but you need to get here, and you need some help. For example, what's going to be important is as the fitness industry grabs on to like these apps, these fitness streaming platforms, and local gyms, is to align themselves with local hospitals and medical centers, and develop relationships with those physicians or those specialty doctors to say, hey, here's how we can work together. And then as long as on the back end, like that data, as long as it can be compiled and then given to the doctor, given to the trainer, or given to like their family of care, then the people like me can be taken care of, and the health will be a priority to which we can continue to drive those healthy behaviors.
Are you seeing any, you said there was a couple of ventures that have not come to fruition. So are there any players or early stage players in the space right now that is trying to make that relationship, that respect between physician, patient, and personal trainer, gym owner now? Or is that still, is that still just a developing idea that we in the fitness industry obviously believe in, but maybe the medical industry isn't there yet?
So to answer your question, it's a little hard to answer, but you can I can think of it like in a couple different ways of why it's difficult to make it happen. On one end, in the data side, there's a company called Point, and Point is sort of kind of trying to do that, like to be the ringleader, the Amazon Web Service. Let's take the data. Let's take your Peloton numbers. Let's take your total numbers. Let's take your gym numbers, everything else. Let's hold on to it, and then let's deliver it to where it needs to go. Even your apps, stuff like that. But what seems to always come into being the problem is, and I don't mean to put them on the spot by any means, but is the Epic healthcare system, like management systems of the world. To be able to develop technology that can be integrated into those really heavy tech stacks is a hard thing to do. And then there's privacy issues and everyone's, the HIPAA compliance stuff. And so until we fix that, it's always just going to be like you and me talking about it, knowing exactly what should be done and how important it is. But until the medical record, people, the executives there make it a priority, then it's just going to continue to be a very slow moving wheel.
That's a fantastic insight. Do you see professionals in the field implementing these same things now? Or again, do you feel like that's maybe a little further down the line?
So I think it's definitely now. Like now is better than later. And I think ultimately, the gyms, the fitness industry, the health club industry, all that, our main concern, our core product is people. And so we kind of have to position ourselves in a way or align ourselves in a way with the way that we can move people day after day after day. And you kind of mentioned something about the future. Like, I kind of envision like where you wake up in the morning and then you want to get moving. And so one of my buddies, his company called Mover, I love his application to be able to kind of go into front of a screen. It'll ask you a few things to try to get to know you, how much time you might have, as well as some things that you could use for some movement. And then it'll basically tell you, hey, okay, for 5 minutes, because that's all the time you have, and with that mat, that's all you have. Let's do this, okay? And then it'll coach you through it. It'll know your history, so it won't have to always give you the same things. It'll actually, through AI kind of thing, it'll progress you accordingly. So you do that in the morning, you're getting moving, you're going, you're hitting the day right. And then you go throughout the day, you're working, you're doing whatever you do. And then maybe you jump on you go to the gym thereafter, and you're going to meet with your personal trainer, as we kind of touched base earlier.
To your point, I know you've been in the industry a long time. In the 90s, you joined your big box. You did only what you could do in your big box. And nowadays, like you said, we have the big box for your treadmill. We have the boutique studios for our specializations. We have our watch for our steps. We have our app for counting our calories. And there's this new, hybrid approach to how we better ourselves physically, mentally, socially, and all that. It's a really fascinating time in the industry.
Yeah, and then it goes back to like earlier when you mentioned, so like what should we do? What should we do now? And I think because there's so much like product out there, all the apps out there, all the wearables out there, these different streaming platforms out there, that it's a great time to sort of try to be ahead and align yourselves with those companies that are going to put your core product, your people, in the right position. And as a gym, whether you're small or large, you have the ability to kind of say, okay, all right, in order to meet the expectations of our people, we want to help them not only become fit in the gym, but we also want to help them get fit at home. And then maybe not even at home, but also kind of build a community. And so those 3 touch points are going to really make or break your business model, in my opinion.
So if you don't mind, you said the three touch points. Can you highlight those again? Because I think listeners love that kind of stuff, these boxes. So can you go a little bit more into that?
Yeah. So you could say, where do people spend their most time? Maybe at home now because people work at home, but even then you're going to say people spend a lot of time at home or commuting, right? Mm-hmm. Or in the office back in the day, and hopefully soon. The second area is at the gym, or a place they work out, or maybe it's an outdoor course, if they're outdoors kind of people. So it's like the inside and then the outside. And then the third is sort of putting both of those together and creating a community. And you have to just kind of figure out, like, who are my customers? Like, who are they? And you need to be able to identify them to the very digestive level of metabolism, like the cell, the very smallest molecule. You need to really know your customers to be able to say, okay, let's just say, for example, my customers are rowers. There's like 30% of them are rowers. Well, then great. Okay, there are a lot of great ways to kind of offer rowing at home if they have a rower. If they don't, okay. But you want to try to connect what their objectives are, their goals are, and offer them product to be able to do them at home, in addition to doing it in the gym, and then offering a social component, whether they're meeting at a park, maybe they're doing it offline or online, and a lot of engagement will happen, to which will drive behaviors which is good for retention, but also it just makes things fun.
We used to say connection and community were so important. We used to think of those as in-person concepts, but right, we're seeing now in the video game industry, I've seen it online forever, that connection and community can happen. My son has really, really good friends that he's never met that live in multiple different time zones, but he would say they're as near and dear to him as anyone here in his school. So I think it's an industry as we embrace creating that. It can only create a win-win for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely learn from a lot of industries, like there's a lot of industries that we can learn from, like, how have they evolved? Because every industry faces conflict and the need to innovate and pivot.
Do you believe there'll be more partnerships or acquisitions to bring the physical and digital together? Or do you think they'll still remain like basically separate entities?
They will establish a lot of partnerships. Let's just put it that way. You can kind of look at retail. It's just recently sort of in the news with Tonal. So Tonal is partnering with Nordstrom's. Tonal's putting in, I swear they said 600 square foot space in some Nordstrom's, which is pretty big space. And it's a try before you buy kind of idea. And I love that idea. I don't know how many people are shopping these days, so I don't know like how that will technically work out, but it paves the way. You know what I mean? Like we can look at it like, oh yeah, you know what? That's cool. I like what they're trying to do. But let's think about that in a gym perspective. Where do people use equipment? Where do people use apps? Where do people use everything related to fitness? The gym. Like they literally do, right? And so there's many of us, we believe that the gyms are now going to be able to sort of be a retail place. So if you're coming in and you're using the rower and you love rowing, and you're like, man, I really want to get one of these at home. Okay, which one do you like better? Okay, good. Well, you know what? You're leaving today, and we're going to be shipping it at the end of the day for you. A couple of days later, you're going to be able to have that rower at your house. Or it could be a recovery tool, like partnering with certain restoration and recovery tools like a Theragun or a Hyper Ice, or even some of the sports nutrition products that are coming out. You like this? Try it out. Okay, cool. You love it? Okay, let's get you one. And then you can basically buy those things through the gym.
That's really interesting. I haven't heard that stated in that way before. We do think that there's a minor ancillary revenue through retail, that it's never, occurred to me at the very least, like, oh, you enjoy that Precor treadmill. Well, good news is for X number of payments, we'll have that shipped to your house so that you can also do it at home as well as at our facility. That's another really interesting concept out there. Are there any brick and mortar chains, mom and pop shops that are implementing successfully any AR, AI, VR that you'd point to as kind of a model of what the future gym experience looks like?
As far as I know, no. It's a slow moving game. The VR industry, I mean, you think about it, like when you think VR, what do you think of? Like big glasses, right? Mm-hmm. Like huge. Like my head hurts, my neck hurts. I can't keep my head up. And so as technology's evolved, the hardware has become lighter, and then software has been better. Graphics are better. And so the experience is going to come down to like where you can literally have some like just a nice lean type of glasses on, get the same experience. And especially with 5G, 6G and all that stuff coming out, it's even going to make it better. So the adoption, if you think about it, the adoption has been slow, primarily because I don't even know how to use it. And then it's too much money. And then it just doesn't look good. And so now we're like, okay, now it looks okay. It's cheaper. And so if you want to buy it at a sporting goods store or online, you have the ability to get that. And then if you combine it with, the Facebook Oculus, which they're probably playing other kinds of games, so it could just be a part of your arsenal, part of your toolbox, where some days I'm doing HoloFit and some days I'm doing, other things. So I think it's been slow to adopt a lot of the AR and the VR because of just the costs and not knowing exactly what to do. But as I would say, even later this year, I think we'll start to see a little bit more like, okay, let's adopt some of these devices. Let's figure out how to position themselves within our business model and offer it as another service. And then, there are some studios, more in Europe and some in China, I think Japan actually, and Latin America, pre-COVID, of course, but they actually had like your boutique studio that was specifically VR fitness. And Black Box VR over here in San Francisco, I know the guys from bodybuilding.com, they opened up Black Box VR, which is more strength training VR. And they, I believe, are trying to open up a couple more stores. So the proof of concept is there. Like they're already proven like this model works and people want it. And we can create stores and we can create businesses with VR. And so now it's just a matter of, as it gets less costly and we can figure out ways to use it for our experiences and our outcomes, then you're going to start to see more of a trickle down effect.
So Jeffrey, if listeners would like to get in contact with you, how best can they reach you?
Well, they could either email me, jeff@ampvp.com, or just go directly to my website, www.ampvp.com. And there's a contact form, so fill that out, and happy to touch base, talk shop, whatever you want to do. Love to meet new people and to talk about people's ventures and their plans for their product to make it, the next $1 million thing.
Well, you've certainly given myself and our FBP listeners something to think about. So I really want to thank you, Jeffrey, for your time today. I also want to thank our listeners for tuning into the Thinking Ahead with the Fitness Business podcast. Until next time, what you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others. Thank you.